Shalom, when this stuff, souls but giving no praise to Yahweh, Baal Shem Yahweh Shai, Bashem Kal Kodash, double honors to the apostles, great most honor, and honors to brothers doing the work, the most in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world eagerly calls God, Jehovah or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. Son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Baal Hashem, Yahweh Shai, meaning in, meaning the and Shem, meaning names Yahweh and the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, just wanted to touch on this because I basically was speaking to someone, earlier on in the week, who basically, they you can put two and two together. They deposit a large amount of cash, because the trade they're in, basically it's a trade where you use cash, right? And basically they're saying how that their account has basically been got closed, right? Their bank account had got closed. And it reminded me of something that that I'd read going on a couple of in the last couple of years or so, right? But I was listening to the elder going in on this, and it all ties in, right? It shows you that he is moving and that he's very much preparing, he's very much preparing the system, right? So let's have a listen, and then I'll get some information, some precepts, Lords. We'll see where the Spirit leads.
Swap raids, asset forfeiture, and broad surveillance powers, Patriot Act, have been used in both contexts. And so now you got Palantir and all this stuff. All this is all about bringing all these systems together with the pre-crime and all that crap. So it's just going to be one demonic system with a boot on the neck of the people. And and really it's going to be all the people, but you tribes are going to get it the worst because you're the scapegoat. So financial and border security, the war frameworks share tools like KYC, AML, right? And they're going to start making it harder and harder too for these drug dealers to bring their money into the real economy.
Right, and that was it, right? So this person I was talking to, right, they're not obviously not in that trade, right? But it's certainly a thing of anyone that is maneuvering with cash is going to find it harder and harder to basically bring it into the digital world, because of things like know your customer and anti-money laundering rules, which basically controls, it's basically the bank saying like, look, man, we don't know where this money's come from. Here it is. They can, on their side, maneuver, tons and tons of money, right, with question marks. But on your side, no, you gotta follow the rules, right? Let's listen to that again. Let the elder finish the point, and then go into some information, get some precepts, Lord, as well.
Harder and harder too for these drug dealers to bring their money into the real economy, because they're going to shut all that down. They don't need it no more. The new world order is just going to have one economy that's run by the AI, so they don't need the black economy no more. So they're going to start shutting that down. But as they're shutting it down, it's going to create a crisis that they can crack down on.
Because even when you consider, right, any kind of job where it's more lucrative to transfer money via cash, right, they're basically making it harder and harder to do that. Okay, because at the end of it, HMRC, I think that's that's the UK equivalent of the IRS, right? His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC, right? They want to be like, yo, we want our money in it, but far more than that, it's a thing of control, right? Anyone that's doing anything nefarious that the government doesn't like, right? Whether that is, the oldest profession on earth, right? Or, whatever it is, right? Basically, he wants to, make it harder and harder for you to navigate that world, right? To navigate, rather bringing regular cash into what he wants to know everything that you're doing, right? Where the money's come from, who it's come from. Okay, so gone are the days of anonymity, right? So let's look at this, right? So this is from finder.com/UK. Will be interesting to see what the US variant is, but I didn't look for that because I know it's very much thing in the UK, right? So Barclays, right, has a £20,000 limit, right, across all personal accounts, right, resetting each January, right? But mind you, these are like the big boys, right? If you beat someone, they're gonna have one of these accounts. I can't see the digital banks here as an example, right? Like Monzo, I did see it had like a really low limit, but couldn't verify that. So, and because it's not here, I'm not going to go into it. But you see, Barclays 20,000, HSB 20,000, NatWest 24,000, right? RBS 24,000 rolling 12 months, Santander 10,000 for personal accounts, right? 240,000 for business accounts nationwide, no specific annual limit, right? So it's but same thing as always. It's like be expected to be asked questions. Okay, Lloyd's 20 per calendar year when when depositing via the post office. Halifax 20,000 per year via the post office. Bank of Scotland 20,000 per year via the post office, and TSB 10,000. Okay, so you see that there's really this notion of control, right, that you're starting to see, and it's very, now that there are these limits, in place, being put in place from an advisory, I forget where, let me see, Financial Conduct Authority, bank deposit limits, there we go. So move this here. Right, so this was an advisory, right? First published 23rd of April 2023, right? So it says, before we started work, banks had limited control specific to their cash deposit services through the post office. Some placed over reliance on the limit of 20,000 per transaction set out in the banking. We know this was abused by criminals who were carrying out multiple deposits of 20,000 each day to launch, and that's always how it is. Okay, they will always say that it's for criminals, for this, right? But this is it. He speaks with a double tongue, right? He speaks with in fact, let me just grab this for Psalm 55 and 20, right? And 21, right? So the words of his mouth are smoother than butter, right? Think words that are smooth, right? Things that he is, on the surface of it, it feels like, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. This definitely makes sense. But when you really look into it, right, you start to understand that, oh, actually, no, there was a plan here all along, right? Right, that's why the scripture says this, right? I always forget where it is. Right, this is 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of his devices. So all of these different things that he is doing, right, we're not ignorant of it. We understand exactly what direction this world is going in, right? And not of ourselves, right? Because these things have been revealed unto us. Okay. This is Amos 3:7. Just on the point, mistype that, right? So in fact, that was spirit, had it jump on verse 6, so I'll read it, right? Shall a trumpet be blown in the city and the people not afraid? Shall there be evil in the city and Yahweh hath not done it? Because ultimately, this is all Yahweh's plan, right? As the apostles say, this is, because this is all leading to the MOTB. But as the apostles say, right, it ain't Esau's MOTB, it's Yahweh Hashem Yahshai's MOTB. Okay, so all of the evil that's going to be brought as a part of this, right, is very much a part of the Lord's plan. Okay, he thinks that he's the one that's doing it, right? This is Isaiah 10:13. It says, for he saith, by the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I am prudent, and I have removed the bounds of the people, and have robbed their treasures, and I have put down the inhabitants like a valiant man, right? So he basically has this spirit of like, look, by my strength I have done it, right? It was all me. It was like, nah, the Most High is the one that made you do it, right? Real quick, this is Proverbs 21:1. It says, the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. Right. So basically, the Most High is basically the one that controls everything. Okay, he's not in control of anything. He's just fulfilling what the Most High wants. Right. Because once again, Spirit had it whereby we started on verse 6, right, of Amos, right, 3, right. About evil in the city, right. Because when you read, this trap that Jake has been put in, because that's ultimately what we're seeing right now. Jake's been put in a in a trap, right? And all of these different systems are all there to lead up, into the time of Jacob's trouble that we're very, very quickly approaching, right? This is, what happened there? I was being slow, Salakia. No idea what happened there. Salakia. So Jeremiah 30:6. Ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. So verse 7, Salakia, says, alas, that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it, right? So what we're walking into, right, is the time of Jacob's trouble. All of these different systems, all of these different plays, right, basically coming together to basically bring about the end. Right now, we look forward to the end. Okay, are we gonna feel things whilst the end is here? It's like, yeah, of course we're going to feel something, right? But do we we still yearn for it, because at the end of the day, like, a kingdom where another person knows everything that you're doing. Well, and not just like a let me phrase it, because the Most High constantly knows what it is that we're doing, the angels, right? But it's more just a man, right? And more so just the idea of this this evil man, right, knowing exactly what you're doing and when. It's like, what kind of world is that, right? So we yearn for the kingdom to come, but all of this is all a part of it, right? But just my point that I was making at the time, Amos 3:7 says, surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants the prophets, right? So through the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, we're able to see and put together and piece together what all of these things mean, right, and what they lead to, right? So Sirach 39:1 says, but he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecies, right? So once again, that's what we see, right? Where occupied in prophecies, right? How do all of these different things that we're seeing, right, the limits to deposits, right? Because in isolation you might be like, yeah, anti-money laundering, yeah, of course, right? But then you see the system, the framework that's being put together, right? You understand, oh no, this is all part of that control. This is all part of that, moving towards that direction, right, of the MOTB. Okay, but would you call it, because for instance, this is basically framing. I've just read it just now, right? Despite reports that we're moving towards a cashless society, you might still find yourself with notes you need to pay into your bank account, right? I thought I was going to say something else there, right? But from what I remember, this kind of just came out of the blue, right? And then even then, right, you're going to end up in a situation where would you call it? You're gonna end up in a situation whereby these limits are cut down, right? Because for most people, they'll be like, well, why does someone? And that's what they always use these individuals that are, basically what's the term? Controlled opposition. So why would someone need to deposit more than 20,000 in a year? And it's just like, well, because they might need to deposit more than 20,000 in a year, right? What ultimately has that to do with you, right? But even as I was thinking this, right, reading into this, right, the fact that it's hard for you to get money out of a bank, right, it's hard for you to put money into a bank, right, the less money that there, physical money that there is, right, you end up in a situation where he can print more and more money, right? Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with someone that is using unjust weights and balance, right? Let's see what we can get. Unjust balance. I know it says this. Yep. Yes. So it says, let me read this one. Proverbs 20:23. It says, diverse weights are an abomination unto Yahweh, and a false balance is not good. right? Proverbs 11:1, a false balance is abomination to Yahweh, but a just weight is his delight. Okay, so basically, the Lord ain't about this whole false balance, right, that Esau uses, which, when you're talking about these, Federal Reserve notes, these, basically this fiat current, these different fiat currencies, right? The Most High is not with that, right? And the fact that they're doing away with more and more cash, right? Is very much going to allow him to further that agenda, right, to take more and more away from the people so that no one has anything, right? We're going to end on this, right, because this is the world that we're moving into, right? The systems that we're seeing, right, all all around us, right? Which even I was thinking on this word algo, that the Spirit had, the elders, the different elders, start, calling these, the World War III algo, this algo, etc. Right? Just thinking about how in the Spirit, right? That word algorithm, it's like you got different, things all basically, moving and progressing to one final conclusion, right? Let me see something real quick. Because that's exactly what we're seeing, right? That's exactly what you're seeing. Scripture says that the heart of is deep, right? This is algorithm, right? A process or set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations, right? Especially by a computer, right? It says algorithms can be simple, like following a recipe or set of directions, or complex, such as the mathematical processes computers use in programs, right? And that's basically what it is, right? Now, the Most High is the ultimate algorithm maker, but what you're seeing right now being played out before us really and truly is an algorithm, right, that the Lord has given these elites on the left-hand side, right? Let me grab this real quick. This is Psalm 64, and from 5, it says they encourage themselves in an evil matter, right? They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall seek them, right? And everything that you're seeing, all of this, this is just one thing, just the money. But then you look at the identity. Then you look at different legislation being passed. The fact that you got all of these quote prisons for illegal aliens being built, right? This idea of you can revoke citizenship, etc., 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 right? This is all part of that evil matter, okay? Verse 6 says, they search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them, and the heart is deep. Okay, and one of the things I find interesting is, Google's AI arm, right? They bought a company called called DeepMind. Okay, even China's model is called what? DeepSeek. Okay. So that's that one. But let me finish on this. Like I said, Revelation 13:16, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Okay, and that's really key, that no man might buy or sell, right? If you ain't got this MOT, you're going to be completely out of the system, and all the different rules and all the different legislation, right, that is being passed, right, is leading up to that. In fact, I'll just close on this, wipe the dust of this one, right? It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness in which they have prescribed, right? When that MOTB be signed right into law, that's going to be an unrighteous decree, right? But guess what? Ultimately, that it's one that the Spirit is with, right? Because that's going to be that real, who's for the Most High, who's against. So as always, laws with us edifying. Till the next time we say, Shalom.